the task here is to implement an extension function is empty or null. And the most interesting thing here is that the receiver might be nullable. So here we have nullable string, and we want to call this function on a nullable string. So indeed, in Kotlin, you can define functions on a nullable receiver, extension functions. That's not a problem. You just mark this receiver as nullable, and then you may implement your function. When you consider a receiver as just an extra parameter with this very nice special syntax to call it, that becomes very easy to understand what's going on and to implement it. You can simply write check your parameter for null and for being empty, and you will do the same trick. We convert parameter to receiver, and now you see the answer. Note how you can explicitly check this for being null. So inside the extension function to nullable type, this might be null. And here the smart cast is used because now this is converted to non-null type after the check. Note that that is very useful for such simple cases like for strings, and in the library actually contains functions is null or empty and is null or blank, which checks whether string is null or empty or blank. And I have to, specifically for this task, I have to swap the name in order to let you implement it yourself. But you use such functions in Kotlin from the standard library by default. And indeed, when you read the code and you see that something is called without just as a regular reference, that doesn't always mean that the variable is not null. So for most of the cases that's true, but note that there is this special case when there is a function on a nullable receiver. In this case, you just call it like a regular reference without safe access. That's something to keep in mind. And because this confusion is possible, when you define your own such functions, you may define your own functions on an nullable receiver, but do it with care, because it's better if your function explicitly tells in its name that this receiver might be null, because in this case it's easier to understand what's going on, and you don't have to guess how it checks null, or whether it's possible to call it on null or not. So you can use it by do it with care in order to not to confuse the readers of your code.